days, I have a challenge for you. Note the term last days. It's not the last millennium, it's not the last centuries, it's not even the last decades. It's the last days. Therefore, if you die before the end comes, you are not living in the last days. You died before them. So here's what I'm willing to do. I put now in video form, I swear that I am not living in the last days. To up the ante, I state as well, if Armageddon comes before I die, I will admit that I am wrong before I die. My last thoughts will be thinking about how I was wrong, how I lied to the people about this, and how I misled people on this. I will also plead to anyone who sees this video after I die, knows full well that I did not die before Armageddon and died during Armageddon, that they make a monument to me being wrong. I want it on my epitaph, I want it in my obituary, on my tombstone. Hell, you can build a stone statue of me with a little speech bubble above my lips saying, I, Tim Kilgore, believed I was not living in the last days, and I was completely wrong. The challenge here is that you reciprocate. In accepting my challenge, you state in video form or written form that you believe you are living in the last days. But if you die before the end comes, on your epitaph, in your obituary, on your tombstone or urn, it will say, believe they were living in the last days, and now admits that they were completely wrong. I want your last thoughts to be that you spent your entire life lying to and misleading people into thinking you were living in the last days. And if there's a God, you are now accountable for your actions. You're accountable for lying to and misleading people. You accept whatever consequences God doles out to people who lie and mislead others. If there's not a God, you accept the consequences of being history's example that you spent your entire life in vain, living with the expectation of seeing Armageddon, and you were utterly wrong. You died a broken person, realizing that you had wasted your entire life and believed you were about to be punished for the actions of your lifetime, lying to and misleading people. Now, for those of you who aren't as patient as I am, I propose a second part to this challenge. If you believe we are living in the last days, speak up. Make a video response to this. Comment on this video saying you believe we're living in the last days, but don't just leave it simply at that. But leave an expiration date when your claim is good for. Think to the future when it would be the last possible year that you would be alive, or even those you've spoken with personally to say you're living in the last days, and post that along with your belief of living in the last days. For instance, I, Jim Bob Jones, believe we are living in the last days till 2050. This will lie as testament to the generations following us in writing that you believed we were living in the last days. This way, people who are hearing that their time is actually in the last days, they can see the footsteps of those who came before them. They can look at your statements and see that you were wrong with your assumption that you were living in the last days. They can see that you spent your life lying to and misleading people and are suffering the consequences of your life. If Jehovah's Witnesses are still around 200 years from now, I want them to have to explain their members from this time thinking that now is the last days, instead of the future time that they will inevitably be teaching are the actual last days. These future generations will see and hear your claims of firm belief that you are living in the last days, and hopefully they will be able to correlate your current belief to their future time that believes the same thing. Your videos and your comments will be history's testament to another generation which believed that they were the last to be around, and it will be documented that your religious group actively taught that this was the last days and they were in fact wrong. They will also have to answer for every comment, every video you leave, that they were lying to you and misleading you into thinking you were living in the last days. That you would see the end of days and you did not. The scriptures state unequivocally that liars and false prophets will not inherit God's kingdom. So your testimony that you're living in the last days is in fact testimony that by teaching a falsehood, you are giving up your chance at paradise or heaven by lying to and misleading your fellow man into your or your organization's belief. That is my challenge to you. Anyone that believes this is the last days, please respond. I look forward to seeing your response. Our children and our children's children look forward to learning from yours and my example.